today I'm making vegetable broth. I've been canning chicken broth and beef broth as well as putting some in my freezer, but today is the day for a huge batch of vegetable broth. I've been thinking as I'm cooking, it'd be really nice to have that in addition to the meat broth. So that's what we're doing today. And you know I mean business when I have my big stock pot out. This is, I think, a 22 quart stock pot. So today I've got all the things out that I'm going to put in this broth. Veggie broths are very versatile, similar to most broths. I don't really have a whole lot of scrap in my kitchen right now that I would normally throw in here, but I've got some celery. I'm so excited. I have parsnips. This adds such a really nice sweetness. It's tremendous and noticeable in broth. If you can get some parsnips to throw in yours, you will absolutely not regret it. Some carrots, bay leaves, onions, some red onion to add some color. I don't have any purple carrots today, so that's why I thought maybe these purple onions would add some nice color. Some garlic, different kinds of garlic. And then I have some broccoli that I'm going to be using in some recipes this week, and I thought instead of dealing with the stem later, I'm actually going to go ahead and chop this fibrous part off the stem and throw that right in as well. I had to upgrade my jar of bay leaves. Oh, they smell so good. This is my favorite part of broth is bay leaves. I had to upgrade my jar because I just buy too many at one time. These, if you can get these in bulk, they are so cheap. I think this was less than $1 for this entire thing, and this is packed full. So I'm going to go ahead and prep all my things. I'm going to be pressure canning this broth. You are not supposed to, at least in our country, you don't pressure can any kind of broth. You don't water bath any broth. So we will be pressure canning later, but I'm gonna go ahead and let this simmer for several hours on low. My stock pot is about half full of water here. It's some good purified water. And I did put a little bit more in than I think I'll need because I imagine some will evaporate off. A lot of times when I make broth, I do it in my Instant Pot, but today we're gonna use the big stock pot. Let's just get things prepared. Garlic cloves, when you're putting these in broth, just toss them right in like that. Don't peel them or anything. It's just not necessary. I kind of break them up at least though. I have a lot of broth here. I'm hoping to get at least one canner full of quarts. I've been canning a lot of my broth in pints, and I freeze my broth in pints as well. So I'm hoping to get at least one canner round of quarts, and then maybe a canner round of pints. This is an onion that I've used for cooking other things, so it's already cut into, but it looks in pretty good shape. So I'm just gonna leave it as is, but just cut it up a little bit more. I'm cutting my quartered onions in half. And I think because I had that half yellow onion and I have the purple onion, I think I'm gonna maybe not even put this extra onion in. I don't want it to be too oniony. Oh, I have another head of garlic here. So I'll throw a few of these in too. This is gonna be a different variety. The other one was a lot lighter. I'll pull one of these out. And this one is a different variety. This looks like it would be a hardneck variety based on what I know and what I've grown. I could be wrong about that, but these tend to have a lot more diverse look to it. A lot of the outside skins will have these stripes. The inside skins can be golden. Skins are flying everywhere here. Now my celery is starting to look a little funky, but you know what, I might just throw that in. It doesn't look too bad. I like a lot of celery. A lot of celery in broths. I sometimes make broths and all it is celery and meat and bay leaves. Celery, chicken bones, and bay leaves. I'm gonna leave just a little bit on the bottom here. So when everything's said and done, I'll kind of look at things at the end and see if I want to add more, but so far I added the equivalent of about an entire head of celery. I find that when I grow celery in my garden, it has a lot of leaves, which is so delicious in these broths. And so if you ever grow your own homegrown celery, not only is the flavor just completely out of this world outstanding, but All of those leaves are so good in broths. Okay, sometimes parsnips, when you get them in the grocery store, this one I got in our co-op, they are coated in wax. This one is not, but I might peel it anyway. I'm not going to strain my broth with any kind of a cheesecloth or anything like that. So I kind of want to keep this darker stuff away. Okay, so we got all the parsnips peeled. Just get some of those dried up brown pieces off of there. Do some some nice chunks. I'll do my carrots about that big as well. So now I'm going to take care of this broccoli. I'm just going to prepare it so that it's ready to go. We're going to oven roast it this week with dinner. We're going to have chicken and just a bunch of roasted veggies. So I'm just going to leave them in these chunks, and then they will be just totally ready to go in. Cut out a little prep work later. So there's not a whole lot of the stem left, but this is really nice and tender, great for eating. And I cut off these fibrous strips on the outside, and they'll just go straight in. Okay, there we go. This is all set. One less thing to chop. Just put it in the fridge right like this. There's a local farm, and I talked about this farm a little bit when I was talking about my seeds, because I actually found out about these really delicious seeds from Johnny Selected Seeds from this CSA that grows these carrots. And they've started growing a lot of carrots and just selling them to the co-op and also individuals throughout the rest of the year, because they have a really great way of keeping them stored. And they are, I think, out of their normal, like, sort of grade A, higher quality carrots. And so the last time I was at the co-op, I noticed they still are selling carrots, but they have a big sticker on there that says juice grade. So the juice grade carrots are going to be just a little less ideal for eating. Maybe they look a little bit uglier to people. Some of these are going to be chopped off. This might not have been that good. They might have cut it off because it was starting to go down in quality or rot in some way. I'm not really sure, but these are going to be just fantastic for broth. I didn't realize I was going to have to cut off quite so much of that carrot. So depending on kind of how things look, I might add another carrot or two. And I went ahead and I put a bunch of bay leaves. I probably threw, 15 bay leaves in here. They're just so good. It's going to add so much delicious flavor. I turned my pot on. This is a lot of water, so it's going to take a while to heat up. So as this is starting, I'm just going to go ahead and finish peeling and chopping my carrots, get it in here, get the lid on, and just let this simmer, and then I'll go ahead and see you back when we're going to strain this out and prepare things for the canning process. Everything is in here. Wow, look at that. That looks so delicious. I do have so much water in here though that I think I'm going to go ahead and just add a little bit more carrot. Probably put the rest of that celery in here. And then this can just start getting really yummy. One last thing I'll mention before we get this simmering is I did the same philosophy that I did with the broccoli with our cauliflower. I have a whole head of cauliflower that I'm going to use in those roasted vegetables that we're going to make this week. And so I took off the stems and I'm going to kind of pick through. I won't put like that stuff in. I'm going to go ahead and pick through this and put in the really good hard fibrous things and add that to the broth as well. It'll add more flavor and more nutrition. Here we are with the vegetable broth after this has been in, I want to say about 3-4 hours. And I've been trying to kind of mix it around and see how richly colored it is, because I feel like that will also be an indicator of the flavor. So I've been trying to kind of take some out. Ooh, that's steamy hot. That's not a good idea. And see how thick it is. And it's still really kind of light in color. So I've been trying to let it go and reduce even further. because I would like it to be a little bit richer. So I think what I'm actually going to do is I'm not going to can this today. I don't want to rush this process. I'm going to leave the lid off and allow that flavor to just deepen. After maybe an hour or two, I'll take another look at the color. And if it's about where I want it, I'll strain out all of the vegetable pieces and I'll let it cool down on the porch overnight and we'll get it canned up straight away in the morning. We're on day 2 now of the veggie broth. I'm so glad that I decided not to rush that process with reducing down the broth because this looks so amazing. Look at how deep and dark and colorful that is, and the richness in color matches the richness in flavor. It is so, so good. At the very bottom, there was this sediment, and I'm a little bit torn on whether I want to try to keep this out of the main batch. I'm sure it's just from the veggies breaking down, but I'm probably gonna try to leave that out. I got out 8 pint jars because that's what fits in my canner, but I'm thinking when I look at this, I'm thinking I'm probably only gonna have 7, especially if I leave out a little bit on that quart that has that sediment at the bottom. We'll just leave that out. We'll keep the broth a lot more clear. You know, I almost think there's a chance that I reduce this broth too much, but we're good. I think that the flavor is going to be so delicious. In fact, I might just put a little mark on these jars to note that this is a really concentrated broth, and I can even take a pint jar out if I'm making some soup or something and then dilute it with an additional cup of just straight water. And that is actually better because we use less jars, less lids, and it saves us a little bit of money. While I was up grabbing my additional rings in my jar grabber for this canning project, I came across my vinegar, which was sitting up there. And I checked into this the other day, and if you haven't seen my vinegar video, you should really check it out. I've never made vinegar before, but this is definitely successful. And when you smell it, it has a really nice, like, pungent vinegar smell, and it's only getting better. I was a little nervous at first that it wasn't going to develop that vinegariness because there was such a strong smell of like alcohols from the fruits and things like that, but it's doing great, and I'm going to keep letting it go for maybe another week, maybe 2. I tasted it yesterday. It's so good. Okay, this broth just came to a boil, and I decided that I think I'm going to add a little bit of salt. I'm going to turn this down, I'm going to do about 2 tablespoons for the entire batch. Now, when you can broth of any kind, you do not need to salt it at all. The last time I did my chicken broth, I added a little bit of salt, and I kind of liked having it in there. I'm just going to add 2 tablespoons for the entire thing, maybe a little less than that. I think that's what it was. And I'm thinking that's probably going to be enough. I should have tasted it first. Let's see if it's too salty. Not too salty. I'm going to pull the broth off and then have my sterilizing my sterilizing pot on to keep that kind of warm. When I was originally making this, I was thinking that I would can these in quarts. I was thinking it'd be nice to get a full canner of quart jars, maybe even a full canner of pint jars, but I did not anticipate all of that reduction. But like I said, it's totally fine. So we had the broth going in the pressure canner at 10 pounds of pressure for 30 minutes. All the pressure just came down naturally, so we're letting it sit with the lid off now to cool down some more. If you take them out too quickly, it can lead to siphoning and things like that. I did hear a very loud kind of crack sound when these first were getting going, and I was a little nervous that the pressure was coming up too quickly. But when I look in there right now, I don't see any that look like they've cracked. Okay, all of our jars, as you can see, are completely intact, which is nice because that snapping sound that I heard when this was building up pressure made me kind of nervous. Now, when you pressure can, once the canner water inside comes to a boil, it starts letting off a tremendous amount of steam. And what you do is it's called venting, and you vent your canner for 10 minutes before putting on the canner weight, which is this thing. And once this goes on, then your canner will start building up pressure. But because this had been venting so vigorously, the pressure was actually slightly starting to build even before I put the weight on. So once I put the weight on, the pressure just shot up pretty quick, and I was thinking that might have caused a problem. In retrospect, I probably should let my canner heat up just a little bit more slowly so that that isn't so much of an extreme change so quickly. But all of our broth looks amazing. We're gonna let these cool down at least overnight, and then we will wash them off, label them, and they'll be good to go to just sit on our shelf. Because now I have canned chicken broth, beef broth, and now vegetable broth, the next one I want to do is going to be a mushroom broth, which I have made only once before, but it was phenomenal. So I'm really excited to do that and bring you along with. So if you want to make sure that you catch those videos coming up, please subscribe, and we will see you soon.